He was the heart of Heartland. The quiet strength, the loyal husband, the man fans trusted. And then he was gone. Ty Borden's death shocked millions of viewers around the world. But what if his exit wasn't just a story choice? What if something deeper, something personal led to Ty's tragic end? For 14 seasons, viewers watched the story of Heartland unfold through love, family, struggle, and healing. But no character captured hearts quite like Ty Borden. From the moment he stepped onto the ranch, with his troubled past and quiet hope for a better life, fans connected with him. He was more than a character, he was a symbol of redemption, proof that even broken people could become something good. That is why his death felt like a punch to the heart. It didn't feel like normal TV drama. It felt personal. Fans around the world were stunned, angry, and confused. Why would the show take away a character so important to Heartland's story? Why break apart the love story between Amy and Ty, one of television's most beloved couples? People searched for answers. Some called it poor writing. Others thought it was a way to boost ratings through shock. Social media filled with emotional posts from fans who couldn't accept that Ty was gone forever. After surviving so much an abusive childhood, jail, health scares, this heroic character died from something as simple as a blood clot. It felt unfair, wrong, almost meaningless. But behind all the anger and confusion, one question remained. Why did this really happen? The truth didn't come from the writers. It didn't come from the producers. It came from the one person who knew Ty better than anyone else, Graham Wardle himself. After months of silence, he finally spoke about why Ty was written off the show. He shared the real story. And it wasn't about ratings. It wasn't random. It was a choice he made. Before we uncover what Graham said, it's important to understand what Ty truly meant to Heartland. He wasn't just a side character or a supporting role. He was a core part of the show's emotional foundation. Ty brought balance to Amy's fire. He brought warmth to Jack's rough edges. He brought peace to a family still healing from the past. So, when he was taken away, something changed in the world of Heartland. It didn't feel complete anymore. The ranch felt colder. The future felt uncertain. Amy was lost, trying to find her way without the man who had always stood by her side. And fans watched not just as a character died but as a bond was broken. Many believed the show would end after Ty's death. How could Heartland continue without him? But the show didn't end. Instead, it shifted. It became a story about moving forward after loss, about love that continues through memory, about grief and growth. But long before that grief reached the screen, Graham Wardle had already made up his mind. And in the next section, we'll explore why this beloved actor walked away from the role that defined his career and broke millions of hearts in the process. Ty Borden was never meant to be a hero. When he first arrived at Heartland Ranch, he was just a teenage boy with anger in his eyes and scars hidden beneath silence. He didn't look like a savior. He looked like a lost cause. But that is what made his journey powerful. He didn't start as a perfect man. He became one. Ty's story was about second chances. He came from a broken home. His father was abusive. His life was full of mistakes he didn't ask for but still paid for. He was sent to Heartland as part of a probation deal after fighting to protect his mom. He could have stayed angry. He could have shut down. But the ranch and the people on it changed him. That transformation is what made millions of fans love him. Ty wasn't just written into Heartland. He grew into it. Jack Bartlett was the first person to see the good in Ty. He gave Ty a room above the barn and a chance to work off his past. Jack didn't treat him like a criminal. He treated him like family, even when Ty didn't think he deserved it. That quiet bond between them, grandfather and grandson without blood, became one of the deepest relationships on the show. Ty once said Jack taught him how to be a man. But Jack didn't teach him with words. He taught him by being there. Then came Amy Fleming. Their love story didn't explode. It unfolded slowly, naturally, like something real. Fans watched as Ty went from the boy who helped her with horses to the man who stood beside her always. They weren't perfect, and that made them perfect together. They argued. They doubted. They faced long distance and near-death moments. But no matter what happened, they kept choosing each other. And that choice built one of the strongest love stories ever seen on television. Ty didn't just grow in love, he grew in purpose. He didn't settle for small dreams. He studied to become a veterinarian, not because it was easy, but because he wanted to turn kindness into a career. The same boy who once thought he had no future became a man who healed animals, guided young people, and protected those he loved, and then came the moment that changed everything. He became a father. When Lindy was born, Ty stepped into a role he never had in his own life, a loving dad. Watching him hold his daughter for the first time showed how far he had come. The boy who once thought he wasn't good enough now gave love without fear. He had finally built a life rooted in hope. But Ty wasn't just a character. He represented something viewers believed in, that pain doesn't define us, that the past can hurt, but it doesn't have to shape the future. He showed people that healing is possible, that love is worth fighting for, and that family can be chosen. Fans saw themselves in Ty, those who struggled with trauma, those who felt lost, those who had to rebuild from nothing. Ty made them believe they could. That is why his death was not just emotional, it was personal. It felt like losing someone real. It felt like losing a friend who had walked beside us for years. Viewers had watched Ty grow from a troubled teen into a man of integrity. They saw his wedding, his graduation, his first home, his dreams. So when all of that ended so suddenly, it felt like everything was stolen from him and from us. Many viewers said Heartland would never be the same. Some refused to continue the show. Others watched through tears. But all of them asked the same question: why would the writers destroy such a powerful character arc? Why take away a story that gave people hope? The truth is, Heartland didn't want to lose Ty. The producers didn't plan for it. The story wasn't designed that way. Ty's death wasn't written because of drama. It was written because something happened behind the scenes, something that had nothing to do with the script. It had to do with Graham Wardle, the man who brought Ty to life. He carried Ty's soul. He brought reality to every silent stare, every broken moment, every line of quiet wisdom. He wasn't just acting, he was connecting. And after more than a decade in Ty's skin, Graham felt something change. A voice inside him grew louder. It whispered a difficult truth. It was time to move on, but walking away from Heartland wasn't easy. He knew what Ty meant to fans. He knew Ty was Amy's heart and the soul of the show. He knew his decision would hurt viewers deeply. But he also knew that staying when his heart was no longer in it would be a lie. In interviews, Graham later shared that he felt called to leave. He spoke about growth, inner purpose, and listening to life when it tells you a chapter is over. It wasn't about Hollywood. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about fame. It was a spiritual decision. Still, the question remained: why did Ty have to die? Why not just write him away to another city or another job? Why not leave the door open for a return? The answer goes deeper than a simple writing choice. It was emotional. It was symbolic. And for Graham Wardle, it was final. When Ty Borden died in season 14, it didn't feel like just another character exit. It felt permanent. It felt like a goodbye that cut too deep to be undone. Fans hoped it was a dream, a flashback, or a surprise twist that would bring him back. But it never happened. Ty was gone, and the reason why wasn't found in the script, but in the heart of the actor who played him, Graham Wardle. For years, the mystery around Ty's death lingered. Why would a character who survived so much, a violent father, a dangerous accident, even a life-threatening illness, die from something as small as a silent blood clot? Why write such a heartbreaking ending to one of television's strongest love stories? The truth didn't make sense until Graham finally spoke up. In an emotional episode of his podcast, Time Has Come, he opened up for the first time. His voice was calm, but honest. He told fans he made the decision himself. He asked to leave Heartland, not because of drama, not because of conflict, but because his soul was pulling him in a new direction. I felt in my heart it was time to move in a new direction, he said. I didn't take this decision lightly. It wasn't easy. But life is asking something different of me now. For Graham, playing Ty wasn't just a job, it was a journey. One that lasted more than half his life. He joined Heartland at 19 years old and grew up with the show, just like Ty grew up on the ranch. But after 14 seasons, he began to feel a shift. A quiet calling that told him his time as Ty was coming to an end. He described the decision not as a choice, but as a calling, a moment when life tells you to let go, even when it hurts. He felt that if he stayed, he would be holding on to something that was no longer true to who he was becoming. He wasn't just leaving a character, he was honoring his own growth. But fans wondered, why did Ty have to die? Why couldn't he move away for a new job? Why not write him into a long-distance storyline or have him separate from Amy peacefully? Why choose death, the most final, painful ending? The answer was deeply personal. Graham knew that if Ty remained alive somewhere off-screen, fans would never accept his absence. They would always wait for his return. Amy's story would stay frozen. The show would never be able to move forward. Ty had to die not because the writers wanted tragedy, but because Graham wanted closure. A clean, honest ending that would force everyone, including himself, to let go. Series showrunner Heather Conke later confirmed this. She said the writing team struggled with the decision. They didn't want to kill Ty, but Graham insisted the story needed truth. Real life has messy endings. Real life has sudden loss. And Ty's death, painful as it was, reflected that. But why write it through a blood clot, the slow, silent killer left behind from a gunshot wound? That moment wasn't random. It carried meaning. Ty didn't die in a dramatic, heroic moment. He died doing what he always did, protecting others. He stepped in front of Amy to save her, and though he survived the shooting, the cost arrived later. It was quiet. It was unexpected. And it reminded us that even heroes are human. The aftermath of his death was more than a story choice, it became a lesson. Graham believed Ty's exit would mean something. He hoped it would help people understand grief, healing, and growth. And in a way, it mirrored his own journey. Just like Amy had to move forward without Ty, Graham had to move forward without Heartland. Behind the scenes, his departure shook the cast. Amber Marshall, who played Amy, said filming Ty's death was one of the hardest moments of her life. Not just as an actor, but as a friend. She and Graham had worked side by side for over a decade. Their on-screen chemistry came from a real bond, respect, trust, and deep friendship. Amber admitted, "I was hurt, but I understood. He needed to move on, and I support him because he followed his heart." But not everyone reacted with understanding. Some fans lashed out. They sent angry messages, demanding Ty return. Others blamed the writers, swearing never to watch again. But through it all, Graham stayed calm. He knew his decision came from truth, and truth doesn't always make people happy. It simply leads them forward. His exit wasn't about abandoning Heartland. In fact, he said he was grateful for the memories, the fans, and the chance to grow through Ty. But he also knew staying would mean playing the same role forever, never answering his deeper purpose. So what was that purpose? After leaving the show, Graham began exploring a new path, one focused on spirituality, storytelling, and personal awakening. He created his podcast, wrote books, and began speaking openly about change, courage, and faith. He wanted to help others face transitions in life the same way he faced his. Ty Borden's death wasn't the end of a character. It was the beginning of Graham Wardle's next chapter. And yet there is one final question left. Was Ty's death truly necessary, or could Heartland have survived with Ty alive, living off-screen? Ty Borden's journey ended on screen, but the impact of his character and the men who played him continues to echo far beyond Heartland Ranch. His final moment was not just a goodbye to a character. It was a turning point in the story of Graham Wardle himself. Many fans wondered, after leaving a show that defined his career for over a decade, what would Graham do next? Where do you go after walking away from something millions of people love you for? The answer wasn't fame. It wasn't money. It wasn't Hollywood. Graham chose something different, something deeper, something personal. After Heartland, Graham didn't chase another acting role. He stepped away from the spotlight and chose to listen to life, to his intuition, and to something he often refers to as a calling. Instead of scripts and sets, he turned to stillness, reflection, and purpose. He launched a podcast called Time Has Come, not as entertainment, but as a space for open and honest conversations. He invited guests from around the world, authors, spiritual teachers, artists, and everyday people who dared to follow a calling or make a change in their lives. The podcast wasn't about drama or gossip. It was about courage, the courage to grow, to leave comfort, and to walk into the unknown. Graham explained that leaving Heartland was his way of honoring a new chapter in his life. He said he wanted to explore what life had to teach him outside of acting. In his own words, "We grow when we step into the unknown, and sometimes the hardest step isn't the first one, it's letting go of what we know so well." He shared that we all have moments when life asks us to change directions, moments when staying in the same place becomes more painful than moving forward. For him, Heartland wasn't just a job. It was home. It was family. But even home can become a cage when your soul is ready to fly. So he chose to let go. But even as he moved forward, Graham never forgot Heartland or the fans who supported him. He said the letters he received from viewers touched him in ways he never expected. Fans told him Ty inspired them to forgive abusive parents, to fight for love, to heal from trauma, and to believe in second chances. In many ways, Ty wasn't just a fictional character, he became a guide for people trying to heal their own lives. Many fans begged him to come back to the show, even just for one final goodbye episode. Others kept asking, will Ty ever return? Is there any chance, any hope that Graham might step back into the role one day? Graham answered this gently but firmly. He said that Ty's story is complete. He doesn't see himself returning to Heartland. Not because he doesn't care, but because going back would be like trying to relive the past. And as he often says, life moves forward. He believes Ty's death carried a message not just for Amy or the Bartlett Fleming family, but for all of us. The message was about love. Real love doesn't end when life takes someone away. Real love continues. It changes shape, but it doesn't disappear. Ty may be gone, but what he gave lives on and the people who loved him. Just like real life, when season 14 showed Amy grieving Ty, it wasn't just a storyline. It was a mirror of life itself, the painful truth that healing takes time. Graham hoped that story would help others heal from their own losses. He said, if Ty's story helps even one person understand grief or believe they can heal, then it means something. Then it matters. And maybe that is where the meaning hides, not in why Ty died, but in what his death taught us. That grief is not weakness. That love is strong enough to survive loss. That endings are not failures, they are transitions. Just like Graham's exit from Heartland, today, Graham continues to walk his new path. He writes, he speaks, he inspires, he explores topics most actors avoid: spiritual awakening, personal growth, courage, faith, and following intuition. He lives quietly, no drama, no spotlight chasing. But make no mistake, he hasn't disappeared. He has transformed. His connection to fans is still strong. On his social media, he often shares messages of encouragement, short reminders to keep going, to listen to your heart, and to trust the journey, even when it hurts. Many fans say his words help them during dark times. In a way, Ty may be gone, but Graham is still here, still giving strength. In the end, Ty Borden didn't die because the writers wanted drama. He died because Graham Wardle chose to honor a deeper truth for himself, for the show, and for the fans who deserved a real, honest story. Ty's death may have broken our hearts, but the story didn't end there. Heartland continues. Amy continues. And so does Graham, because life is not about holding on forever. It's about loving enough to let go. Graham once said something that now feels like the perfect final message, not just about Ty, not just about his time on Heartland, but about life itself. Every sunset brings a sunrise. Every ending leads to a new beginning. Let go with love and trust the journey. And maybe that is the legacy of Ty Borden, not the pain of his death, but the power of his story. A story that taught us how to heal, how to love, and how to move forward, even when it feels impossible.